early career scientists that have had careers in plant science and that work in different fields, spanning from academia to industry to the startup world to governmental agencies. And they will share their insights on how it was for them to look for jobs after graduate school and within the plant science, but also beyond plant science. But before introducing the speakers, I wanted to briefly introduce what the PlantGrads initiative is. So PlantGrads is a community that is designed to support current and prospective graduate students in their plant science careers. We are all early career researchers, mostly graduate students and postdocs who really have this mission to create a community where we can bridge gap in resources, provide a networking platform and mentoring platform and career advancement opportunities for graduate students in the plant sciences and beyond. And the leadership team, as of now, is made up of the people that I have put up in the slides. So there's me, I'm Sesson. I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. We have Nikki here from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Isabel from New York University, Pratik from the Washington University in St. Louis, and Aubrey from the University of Utah. And we also have our advisors who have kindly joined today, who are Sunil Raju from UC Riverside and Ariadna Gonzalez from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And today in the organization of this workshop, we're also joined by the African Researchers Network and the American Society of Plant Biologists, which is a network whose mission is to foster international collaboration within scientific societies, and in particular at the American Society of Plant Biologists. And it does so by organizing workshops and initiatives within the plant biology annual meeting. So if you're going there this year, I think it will be in Wisconsin-Madison, watch out for them. And if you would like to be part of this initiative, keep up with the events that we organize, but also be part of the leadership team yourself, please reach out to us by email, plantgrads@gmail.com. We have a Slack channel, and you can send us an email with your CV so that you can be a part of our Slack. And we also have a profile on X, which is @PlantGrads. And with that, I will go ahead and introduce today's panelists. So as I mentioned before, we have chosen early career scientists that have had either transitioned directly from grad school to academia, or have transitioned, from academia to industry, to governmental agencies, and to the startup world, sort of to give you a really broad perspective on how it is out there. Again, very important in this, times of job market uncertainty. And so today with us, we have Dhruv Patel-Tupper, who is an Emerging Technologies Fellow at the National Science Foundation. We have Michael Tross, who is an AI developer at Corteva. Prince Zogli, who worked as a principal scientist at Galley and now is transitioning. And so he will tell us more about how it is from that end. We have Minya, who is an assistant professor at the University of Illinois. And then we have Nadia Shakoor, who is a principal investigator at the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center. So thank you so much again, you all, for taking your time and joining us today. We're sure we'll have great insights and great discussions. But before starting with the Q&A, I just wanted to give each of you about 5 minutes to tell us how you got where you got. So let's see. Let's start with Dhruv. I see you here first on my window.
Thank you, and thanks for the invitation to be here. I feel I'm very excited and passionate to talk about getting plant biograds into all different kinds of jobs because we do such really cool stuff, and I feel we put ourselves in a box in some ways, and so we can really think broadly about how we can build impact beyond what we've done in bench science. But hi, everybody. My name's Dhruv Patel-Tupper. I did my PhD in plant biology at UC Berkeley, where I use gene editing to engineer how well crops can photosynthesize in the field and how robustly climate resilient they can be. After that PhD wrapped up, I had a short postdoc at the Innovative Genomics Institute, also in Berkeley, before joining the AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship Program. This is traditionally a great program, as you all might be aware that there are fun things happening in the government, so there might be a bit of a lull here. And again, I don't speak on behalf of my agency, but it is a really outstanding program with a very established network of colleagues all across the scientific disciplines. What this fellowship program does is it takes a majority of recent PhDs and kind of sprinkles them throughout different agencies across the federal government so that we can build science-based and evidence-based solutions into the policy that reaches the federal scale. So in my first year, I was at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. There, I was in the Foreign Agricultural Service, where I helped navigate our international climate negotiations work. And so this involved engagement in different United Nations fora, like the UNFCCC, the Framework Convention on Climate Change, as well as the Clean Climate and Air Coalition, thinking about ways that we can reduce our greenhouse gas footprint in the agricultural space. And so that was really exciting, very eye-opening. I felt like a very tiny piece in a very big puzzle. So I then moved on to the National Science Foundation, where I'm there in their new Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships Directorate, covering emerging technologies and primarily biotechnologies. At the National Science Foundation, I'm there more as kind of a strategic planner, where we're identifying these research areas that scientists in labs across the country have discovered that are just on the cusp of translating into very cool biotech products. And so this, of course, is a step out of food and ag and more broadly in biotech, including pharmaceuticals, bioindustry, biorenewables, and things of that sort. And that's been really great to use my scientific mindset, but really say, where's the cutting edge of a lot of these ideas, and how can some targeted efforts and investments really make really big exponential impact happen. You can imagine, I think the U.S. Department of Agriculture maybe was a bit more aligned to my technical skill set, but at NSF, me having a plant biology degree doesn't really matter much at all. The PhD is really a toolbox of skills more so than being directly in line with my technical expertise. So for me, it was this fellowship program has been a really great way to pivot outside of the lab bench, but also think about ways that I can use the skills I developed to build impact outside of food and ag.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dhruv. So I dropped the link to the fellowships that Dhruv was mentioning about, the AAAS fellowships, on the chat. So go check that out. Okay, Minyao, would you tell us a little bit more how it is in academia land?
Okay, sounds good. Hi, everyone. My name is Minya, and thanks for having me here. And actually, today is my last day of being a postdoc. As of tomorrow, I will be officially starting my position at University of Illinois as an assistant professor. So before this whole postdoc assistant professor thing, I started my undergrad in China, in Japan. It's as a joint degree program. And when I was in Japan, I had a little bit of lab experience that made me realize, oh, research is actually really fun. So I wanted to do more of it. So after my undergrad, I did a master's degree in Europe. It's a rotational program in evolutionary biology. So I studied and lived in France, in Germany, and in Sweden. So this experience made me realize, oh, I really love research. And it also made me realize what kind of fields that I'm really interested in, I'm really good at, and I want to know more. So after my master's, I decided to do a PhD. I moved to the United States and started my PhD at Harvard University. And that's how the PhD and the postdoc and the now the assistant professor transition go. So my research focus on flowers. I am obsessed with flowers, and I think they're aesthetically pleasing and they're biologically and economically important. So I'm trying to use different kind of development and molecular tools to understand the pathways and developmental principles that governing flora meristem regulation. How does it decide the numbers, the timing, the identity, and the position of organ initiation in flowers, and what are their evolutionary implications? So I would say I have a pretty straightforward academic path, and I'm happy to answer more questions later regarding this path. Thank you.
Thank you, Minya. And now we'll move to Nadia, who is also a principal investigator at the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So my name is Nadia Shakoor. I am officially I'm an assistant member at the Danforth Center, and that's been kind of an interesting journey. So I'm on the equivalent of a tenure track path at the center. However, I've been a PI here for a few years, and my path's been kind of all over the map. I'm actually going to go back to my undergrad days. I did my undergraduate at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, and then took a big hiatus, about 5 years, worked for a cosmetic company as a chemist. I was a lab chemist. I was a lab bench scientist, but in a totally different field. And then came back, decided to go to grad school. Started out at the University of Chicago, was there for a couple of years, wasn't quite the right fit for me. So I ended up leaving there and working for a startup that worked, and my area of focus is sorghum genomics and genetics and phenotyping and stuff. And so started working for a sorghum genetics company, and then one of their academic advisors, it was a sorghum seed company, one of their academic advisors came and gave a seminar, and I was like, hey, can I finish my PhD in your lab? Yeah, you seem way cooler than my previous advisor. And it ended up working out really well. I ended up finishing my PhD at the University of South Carolina, moved to the Danforth Center to do a postdoc, left the company, started working at the Danforth Center as a postdoc in 2014, and kind of worked my way through different positions, ultimately getting to a position where I could apply for my own independent grants. Became a PI, got some big grants, started my own lab, and then last year applied for kind of that permanent track position and got it. So that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome, Nadia. What an interesting path, sort of startup, academia. I'm sure our participants will have a lot of questions on how it is, to move from one to the other. And I think Prince also had a similar path, right? Moving from academia to the startup world, right, Prince?
Yeah, listen. So I guess it's my time to introduce, right? So thank you all for coming. My name is Prince. I originally came from Ghana after my bachelor's. So I got my PhD from the University of Vermont in plant molecular biology. And after that, I moved to University of Oklahoma and Nebraska, where I did my postdocs in plant defense. I was looking at molecular traits. Can you hear me? So yeah, good. I was looking at molecular mechanisms that plants use to defend themselves against biotic and abiotic stressors. So I was looking at transcriptomics and functional gene characterization. But at the point, I started wondering if this is really what I wanted to do. I wanted to work on a project or something that would, be on the market, because I want to be at the forefront of product development. So I started thinking of ways I could transition out of academia. And one of the ways path that I took was to get an MBA in addition to my science. And after that, I was able to transition. So it was not easy, but I successfully transitioned to a startup in Boston, Gali. Gali is a cellular ag company. We were working on means to turn cells into fiber. using in vitro or tissue culture techniques and genetic engineering and stuff like that. So I worked at Gali for 2 to 3 years. But like Susan said, I'm currently in transition. I no longer work for Gali, so I just want to make it clear. I'm not speaking on behalf of Gali on this call. But at Gali, I function as a scientist and also a product or project manager because of my unique blend of science and business. So doing that, you have to work with the team to define research goals and move those goals from concept to product. And also, I was working with the business development team on fundraising and business development. So as a technical lead, I would have to be on the call to explain the technology to potential partners or investors, why our technology is cool, why they should put money in it. And that's so that at the startup, you have to do multiple things. Sometimes you have to have a team that you're managing. Sometimes you have to define the strategy. So you have to have that versatility to be able to function as a startup. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And thank you all. And thanks for inviting me, Susan.
Thank you very much, Prince. And yeah, Michael, I think you work at the interface of plant science and AI, right? Which is really a buzzword these days. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so Michael Tross, my journey in the plant sciences actually began as an undergrad at a small liberal university in Crete, Nebraska, called Doane University, where I was pretty much measuring root exudates of maize roots using image analysis. That kind of got me into the programming side of things. But after I graduated as I graduated my undergrad, I decided to pursue a PhD, and that's where I met Dr. James Schnabel through a lab rotation. And funny thing I always tell people is that I had no idea who he was before I joined his lab for the rotation, and it was just a month before I had to do that rotation that I just randomly decided to go to his lab. So in his lab, I started off doing a lot of plant phenotyping, quantitative genetics, and then I kind of transitioned into more ML stuff where we were estimating traits using sensor data. And then at the end of my PhD, I transitioned fully into more of the genomics side of things, where we started building AI models to predict regulatory elements in genes. But before I graduated, I had a short stint at Google X for an internship where we essentially, I don't think I can really go into detail as to what we did, but it was pretty much artificial intelligence in plant biology. That startup, that's now outside of Google, and it's a startup called Heritable Agriculture. Now, I just started a full-time position at Corteva AgriScience as a artificial intelligence developer. And here, I basically work on a lot of things that I did in my last project, where we are using AI, combining AI and genomics approaches to solve those genetics-related problems. And I'm happy to be here to share any advice into how I got my role and how I'm able to combine both domains to do my job.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Michael. And thank you to all our panelists again for introducing themselves. And I think the common thread maybe here is to be versatile, right? To learn to maybe use your skills, the skills that you've learned in different ways, that there is no linear, you start doing one thing in undergrad and then you keep doing it until, you find a job. It's especially in this job market, maybe versatility is the key. And in fact, I would like to start with the first question that we got through our registration form, which is how to approach and how to prepare for the highly unpredictable job market, considering a lot of fired people and not many open positions for recently graduated PhD students in agriculture and plant science. Or in other words, is there something that you would suggest doing in your final year or semester of graduate school that can be helpful in finding employment? I think this is a key question also because the point of this webinar is also to give each other hope, right? We're in this boat together, and as plant scientists, we can find ways. We always had, and so we're really curious to hear from our panelists if they have any insights on what to do when you're in graduate school to sort of put your foot out there. Dhruv, did you want to start? You mentioned fellowships, internships in your introduction.
Yeah, I'd be happy maybe first to talk a bit broadly, just in the framing of that question, seeing there are not many jobs for PhD students from plant bio and ag backgrounds. And part of what I had to do in my career search is kind of flip the script in how I thought about these things. So I'm not a PhD student in agriculture. I am a candidate with a PhD, right? I don't want to cut myself off and only limit myself to keywords that are in line or adjacent to my technical skill set, because the things you do in your PhD are really broadly applicable. In many ways you function as a project manager. Depending on your lab, you might also be budgeting your science and really thinking about how to do that research effectively and efficiently. You might be mentoring undergraduates, so you might be a manager of people in some ways. And so you have a lot of these skills that are really broadly applicable. And for folks that are thinking about stepping out of academia, I think it's really important to emphasize that and think about that and have that be first and foremost in how you're approaching jobs that you're applicable for. And so there is a lot of kind of mental gaming that I still do, and I have to remind myself that if I see a job description that seems really cool, but it seems in a completely different field, do I actually have the baseline skills to do that job well? I think when thinking about your next step, Sessin, like you mentioned, fellowships are often a great way to pivot pretty quickly. The AAAS fellowship program is one at the federal level, but there are many state level programs that are also running their own science policy fellowship program. These are very short 1 to 2 year programs, but it really kind of explodes your non-academic network, which is really incredible for connections and places you can apply to. And I think those are great places to look. Yeah, and maybe I'll end there.
Any other speaker wanted to give some insights on that?
Yeah, I just want to re-echo what he just said. As a PhD or a student, you've done a lot of things that are transferable. So most of the jobs or where I worked, we're looking at skills like transferable skills like ability to manage people, project management. You want to be able to communicate your science. And these are things we've all done either at poster presentations or speakers in our conferences or even during our lab meetings. So just widen your scope whenever you're applying to positions and extract things that you've done and transfer those to the job application. Be sure that you tailor your resume to meet what is being asked for, and go prepared to interview. Research the company as much as you can, know the person or people you're going to be talking to, and connect. The most important thing is connecting with people when you interview. You want to create that safety. They want to trust you because, like they say, people want to do business with people they know, trust, and like. So you want to create that safety net whenever you interview. And the rest is their decision, but you want to just put your best effort forward when you have the opportunity.
I might add, if you're interested in academia right now, I know it seems really scary with all the federal agencies shutting down, restarting, all this, everything. But one thing that I would recommend, especially if you're in your last year, is start looking at who is getting money. So usually when any big award comes out or a lab gets funding from any agency, the organization that they work for puts out a press release. You can just Google whatever university, all the universities in the region that you're really interested in moving to, see who's got the money. Because right now, sending your resume out to like labs you're interested in working in is probably not going to work because maybe 1 out of 10 might have funding. But really looking to see, targeting your next steps based off who's got the money, and then reaching out to them now, or because maybe their funds are frozen because of everything going on. But once this actually might be a good time, to kind of reach out and say, hey, I'm interested. Do you think you might have opportunities as part of you got a $20 million grant? Is there any opportunities around? Because all universities, institutions really put that out there on their PR website. So leveraging that and spending your kind of last year, because if you're interested in academia, it always revolves around funding and getting money to do your work. And this applies to startups and companies as well, a lot, but knowing who's got the funds, and then also the agencies that give the money. So spending time on NSF's website, spending time on USDA's website, whatever you think might end up funding your future research. These are the places that you'll be applying to when you're a postdoc, when you're a PI, wherever you end up. So yeah, kind of familiarizing yourself with that. And maybe, if you have the opportunity to join a review panel, I know that can be difficult for graduate students, but if you're a postdoc, that's a really good way to get yourself in and set yourself up for, funding success.
I completely agree with everything that's been said before. Like we need to diversify our portfolio and know how to tell people our portfolio is diversified. We need to look at where money is, and then reach out to people specifically. One thing I'd like to add is that I think no matter for jobs, positions in academia or outside of academia, networking is extremely important as well. Because for many people who are looking for other people to hire, they're not just trying to find a machine to do the job. They are trying to establish a relationship with this person, like you're going to interact day to day. So establish a network to through conferences and many other opportunities to potential PI, and tell them ahead of time that you're interested, you might be looking, to make them have a feel of what kind of person you are, whether you're a good fit for the lab or something, is really important. Because I think most PI would like to, they might want someone who is really, really efficient and get the job done, but they also don't want someone who might create a toxic environment. And then the only way for them to judge whether this might happen or not is to getting to know you personally a little bit. So I think networking it has to be done somehow.
So can I?
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. We can circle back because yes, we have some from the registration form and also some coming through the chat. So I am going to read one question that we had from the chat regarding networking and connecting, especially outside of academia, where, as Ninya mentioned, you have conferences, you can find potential PIs, or you can look at the websites and the NSF websites and PI websites, as Nadia mentioned. But one participant mentions, I find it difficult to know what people in industry, for instance, are working on or finding their contact info. LinkedIn gets very few responses. So how do you recommend reaching out to people in industry to connect, talk, pivot out of academia? This is maybe mostly for Michael and Prince. Michael, you interned, you said at Google X. How did that start?
Well, I mean, I think a big part of it is networking, right? And I would like to encourage people to start looking for jobs early in their graduate career. Don't wait until your last 2 years. Right, you look at jobs, see what we could possibly be be doing in the future, and then you start reaching out to people who in industry who you think are in similar roles or might be doing similar things. But I mean, I in terms of speaking specifically about my experience, a big part of it was, I think my advisor had research out there that X was interested in, right? And so they reached out to him. And through that, we started collaborating, and then we realized, okay, well, you know, I might be able to help with certain projects. And so that's how I basically ended up there. And a lot of that happens in industry, right? Seldomly you send a random resume and then somebody selects it, right? They usually look for people who are familiar, which means that you need to be out there. You need to be putting yourself out there. You need to be giving talks at conferences, posting on social media, poster presentations, right? Familiarity is key, especially within the plant sciences, I think.
Awesome. Prince,
Yeah, thank you.
how did you
Michael.
go from your postdoc to startup?
Yeah, so I just wanted to re-echo what Michael said, or rephrase it in a way. You start job search way before you even need it, and the same goes for networking, because like maybe many of us know that about 70% of the jobs are filled before it's even posted on the job boards. And how does that happen? In my experience, whenever we have a position to fill, we ask internally if you know someone, and that's how somebody whom you've been connected with or interacting with over a long period of time and build that trust can say, yeah, I know someone who has XYZ skills and will be a cultural fit. Because some of the challenges, whether it's in academia or in industry, like Minya, or yeah, you mentioned, is will this person be culturally a fit? We've had examples where the person is really good scientifically, but was just not easy to work with. So people want to be sure that you're going to be a cultural fit and through your network, because they've already known you, they can, give that, and that'll give you the edge to start an interview before others do that. And in my experience, if you don't follow up with your network, because when I started networking, I thought just connecting with people at the conferences or have a LinkedIn request accepted is enough. But that's not enough. That's just the beginning of your networking. You have to follow up with the people. You offer value to them as they offer to you, and keep in touch, so that when the day comes that there's an opening in the company that you are interested in, you can easily reach out to that person. But if you are not in touch, it's really hard to reach out. And those that are in touch with them may get the edge over you. And how do you make the networking easy for yourself? You just need to know what exactly you're looking for and have a list of companies that fit what you're looking for. And once you have that, then you can be deliberate in connecting with people and keeping in touch, because you know what you're looking for, and the people that are in the roles that you are interested in, you can connect with them, and just stay in touch and be on the lookout. When opportunity comes, you reach back to them, and they will be more than happy to make put in a referral for you.
Awesome, thank you. So what I'm hearing so far is that cold emailing, cold applying does not work anymore. Especially nowadays, you need to build your network, and that is a full-time job. You need not only to network to contact them, but to really, grow these networks, grow these connections by following up, and the things that Prince and Michael mentioned. Now we have a couple of questions coming in the chat regarding how much experience is enough to make you competitive if you want to transition. So Prince, you mentioned getting an MBA. So someone mentioned, did you do this during your PhD or after? How did this play into your role at Galley? Or we have another question saying from Leticia, I hope I pronounced it correctly, saying that they worked for 1 year in a startup software company as a data strategist, but they're not sure if this 1 year make them competitive to be a data scientist. So how much experience is enough, right? Because at some point you just have to, use what you have in graduate school and beyond. And how do you tailor that? Nadia, did you want to say something?
Sure. I might actually say one more thing about networking real quick. Simply as somebody who does not like networking, not a social butterfly in the slightest, and definitely an introvert in that sense. There's other ways you can do this that I think, because it's right, you have to have a network in order to advance your career, because almost all position opens up, somebody thinks of you and hires you, right? And you have to be in their network in order to do that. One way that I've done it, this may or may not work for everybody, but I've in all of the labs I've been in and the positions I've been in, there's always been an opportunity to the PI that I worked for, or the bosses, they had collaborations with other institutions. They had bigger projects, they had other sort of engagements, and so I took on the role at the time before all these online tools. I have the ability to write nice emails, so I took on the anytime a speaker came into the lab, I was the one who talked to them via email. I didn't talk to them in person because no way, via email, but I was the one who helped them find a place, scheduled meetings, for the biweekly meetings for a given project for my PI. I was the one who scheduled the meetings, sent out the meeting reminders. And a lot of times that sort of organizational skills, your communication skills are what people are looking for. Of course, you're a good scientist because you got your degree and your papers speak for themselves. People remember those soft skills, and you can do that without actually having a drink with somebody or meeting them and walking up to them at a conference. Within your current position, and trust me, your PI or your boss will love you for it because you're taking something off their plate that they probably don't have time for. So that's just sort of a hint at networking. Sorry, don't want to derail the conversation there, but I wanted to put that in for the introverts out there. Yeah, and then your second question was on how to, sorry, what was
how much
it?
experience is
Oh,
do we all need MBAs now? Do we all need 3-4 internships now? Do we need to apply to the AAAS fellowships now?
I would say you need you need as much experience as you feel confident that you can put it on your resume. And if somebody says the job description needs you to develop machine learning models for this, and you are like, I can do that at some level of competence. You there's nothing set in stone. If you say you could do something and you make a good impression on an interview and you have those letters behind your name, you're probably in pretty good shape. I wouldn't try to over certificate yourself or anything like that, because the other things are going to be more important. That's not those soft skills.
Yeah, and Sessin, I might add that I think we are very quick to discount ourselves in some ways, where we're like, oh, this job needs 5 years of experience and I have 3. And, sometimes we look for excuses because we're afraid of that risk. But, when you're applying to jobs, hiring managers in the case of industry and non-academic positions, especially, they're trying to mitigate their risk, right? No one's going to be the unicorn that fills 100% of their requirements. Science has shown that women and people of color are less likely to apply than other folks to jobs because they don't meet all of these bullets. But the bullets you don't meet, you often bring something else that the hiring manager hasn't even thought of. So don't use years of experience to discount yourself from applying to something. Think about how you add a twist to that job that, you know, maybe they aren't even expecting, and that's something that you can highlight. Of course, you should meet the baseline requirements. That's really important. But when you think about your experience and as you prepare your professional materials, you shouldn't be thinking about covering the breadth of what you do. You should be considering the specific, most impactful highlights of what you did. So, you know, if I was a PhD researcher for 6 years, these are the 3 highest impact things that show how effective I was across those 6 years. I didn't break down what I did across those 6 years, but I showed these are my points of highest potential. And for that reason, I can bring that potential to your company. And so thinking about that as well, focusing on impact.
Yeah, so I can just add to that. So you could also just look at the job description and probably distill it into 2 or 3 themes of what the job is requiring and try to match it with what you've done over the period of your work. And just match that to the job description, and that should be sufficient for you to apply. You don't have to meet every requirement as was said, but don't disqualify yourself, just apply. But when you apply, find a way to connect or follow up, because those that follow up post application most likely will gain the hiring manager's attention. So don't just apply, but follow up by adding some value, telling them why you are a good candidate for the position, and just do your homework about them. And most of the time it helps when you are in doubt.
Yeah, and I would just like to echo what Prince and Jock been saying. You hardly does the hiring manager know exactly what he wants, right? I've seen that cases in just the 7 months that I've been here. If you meet 50% of the thing, I mean, apply. And I think one of the benefits too is that I don't know if all companies do that. I mean, I can speak to Corteva, but we circulate resumes. You might not get the job, but we know that somebody else might be interested in the skill set that you have. So we pass it to this other person, or you're in mind if something else pops up. So for sure, there's no unicorn, right? Nobody's gonna fit anything perfectly.
Great. Thank you all. So we have a lot of international participants. So one question that we had was, for panelists who navigated the immigration process, do you have any insights or advice for international scholars seeking employment in your sector? How do you navigate that? A lot of fellowships maybe are not available for visa holders. How do you go?
I can speak a little about this because when I'm doing PhD in the US, I'm an international student, so I wasn't eligible for any kind of federal grants and stuff. And the result of it is that I had to teach way more than my peers, my cohorts. But I found one good way to boost up my resume and help me to get some research grants and stuff is from professional societies. So I totally recommend that. As to immigration process, so my advisor for my PhD and my advisor for postdoc, the PhD advisor is American, and the postdoc advisor, he is originally Chinese, and he is Chinese. So their understanding of the whole immigration process that I have to gone through is very different. My PhD advisor didn't really know anything about the immigration process, but that's not her fault. It doesn't mean that she doesn't want to know. So I think a great way to approach it is that really don't hesitate to educate your advisors who are not aware of these processes, to tell them like how much we have to deal with, like just showing them how the thickness of the paperwork we have to submit for each renewal or whatever is a moment for them to know this process better. And when they actually build up certain knowledge and know how hard it is, good advisors always willing to help. They will ask you, what can I help? Like, what are you having trouble? Is there anything like so? But to start this process, you have to start to tell them what's going on, to educate them first, especially when you think they don't really know this whole process. And I did that with my advisor during my PhD when the first term of Trump, that they were threatening to revoke all the visa for Chinese students. Like, she stood up for me. She helped me to connect with international offices. She was shocked that international students don't have their own lawyers, and so this kind of things. But she helped me to educate more professors in my department. So we collectively formed a community that whether it at least to make me feel better and stronger. And I think this is very important during a hard time as well.
Okay, Prince, did you have anything?
Yeah, so I also went from an international student to, getting a green card. I would say that if you have a PhD, chances are you can self-petition or get a lawyer to help you through a process to apply for the national interest waiver. If you've not heard about it, you may want to look into it, because with your PhD and publications, you can either self-petition, which is what I did, or get a lawyer if you're scared of that process, to help you write a petition so that you can get a green card. And so that's what I want to say. And I think most of us in the sciences have the STEM OPT, right? So you have 1 year OPT and then another 2 years as a STEM. During that period, you could use it to really get your immigration going. I know we're from different backgrounds. People from like Asia will have to wait a longer period to get a green card. But if you are not in that category, you probably want to start the process as soon as you can. I've seen people doing these petitions even before they graduate from graduate school. So if you haven't heard about the national interest waiver, I think it's a thing to look into. That's what I want to add to this.
Awesome, thank you, Prince. And so we had, and we're almost at our end, but one question was, would today's speakers, anyone, be willing to offer their CV or resume as a reference? I'm really enjoying hearing your story. And yeah, they will really be insightful and provide hope. And we had another participant seconding that. So if any of you was willing to even share your resume as a reference to see, how do you phrase things and how do you report skill sets, they say it would be really helpful. So if anyone is willing, please send me an email, share it with me, and I can share it with participants. Let's see. So we have time for one more question, and which is, let me see, getting from the registration form, which is promotions. How do you negotiate? So negotiation is not something that you really learn when you're in grad school, right? It's something you have to learn it the hard way. And do you have any advice on how to learn to negotiate better? Negotiate for salary or benefit packages, negotiate for promotions, and things like that. Anyone have insights? Or for startup packages, Minya?
I can't answer first because I'm not good at this, so I want to know advices too. I just want to confirm that it's really, really hard. Although the advices I get is that stand up for yourself, speak for yourself, but it's hard, especially the person you're negotiating with is actually very nice to you. It's hard to say no to them. So I confirm it's very hard, and I don't think I'm that good at it, although I thought I would be okay, but the real process made me realize, oh, I'm terrible at this. So I like to hear advices as well.
One piece of advice is if you're looking at a new position in a lab or a department, is actually talking to other people in the group and seeing what is the boss's approach. Like, are they a generous boss? Like, do they, you can very quickly tell who are the stingy PIs versus who are not the stingy PIs if you ask the right questions. So that's worth looking at. I think similarly in industry, trying to see if you can find out what are people making at the company in, what your colleagues are making. Right now, people are a lot more open about salaries. And with negotiations, the one thing that you always should ask for is what's the range for this position, right? Like that's not an awkward question. So like, that's just like, hey, I wanted to know what's the salary range for this position, and they will give it to you. That's not something that HR or anybody in organizations holds back. Like that's a very reasonable question. You're not asking, how much are you going to pay me? Or that's not enough. You're asking for the range, which has already been preset. And then you can say, hey, I have this many years of experience. I think I should be in the middle of the range, or I'm just starting out, that way it's just try to make it as transactional and not emotional as possible. And then also when you're starting out, you may have to just deal with what you get. So like over time, and then prove yourself, right? Like especially in academia, everything is grant funded. So I started out with a big pay cut as a very low paid postdoc, right? But then very quickly a position for a project research manager opened up, and I almost doubled my salary because I'd proven myself. And I was only 2 years into my postdoc. So again, maybe don't right out the gate, don't reject low salaries, because chances are that's all the PI can probably pay you. But then also in academia, try to see how you can leverage different positions and grant funding to try and get more money. So that's my.
Yeah, and I think another thing to think about is, especially for non-academic jobs, once you get, and actually maybe this is broadly applicable, but if you get the job offer, then you are the top candidate. You are the person that they think is best fit for the role. So they are trying to win you over now. The worst they can say is no. I mean, the very worst they can say is rescind the offer, but I feel that can only really happen if you come in very impolitely and aren't trying to build a mutually beneficial relationship, right? You're asking for these things because they'll put you in a place where you can work most effectively in this role. You'll satisfy your needs. You'll be able to be the most efficient person for that position. And so it is beneficial to your boss for you to be happy in your job, to have you long term, to make that impact. And I think we trick ourselves into thinking, oh, we're asking for too much, or, can I even ask this right now? I only have 1 year of data science experience, etc. But yeah, build up the confidence to ask for those things. LinkedIn has some good LinkedIn learnings about negotiations, which kind of break it down and kind of depersonalize it and say, here's like a formula to try and do that. And I would recommend those. But really, yeah, push yourself to do it, even if it's uncomfortable. If they say no, that's fine, but you have that experience under your belt for next time.
And just to add to that, I think for you to, like you're talking about promotion, I would say just go ready to do the job, give your best, and look into the company policies and use that as a leverage to negotiate. Like in my previous company, we have twice there's a review every 6 months for people that have worked in the company. So just do your best, and most often you're hiring your manager will likely put your name forward for consideration, and that makes it easier for you. So I would say number one thing is to do your job and do it well, and then you can leverage the policies that a company has. And know your value when you're going for those negotiations. Know what your ideal value is, what your walkaway is, and then start bargaining from above what your ideal is, so that if they bring it down, you can at least get closer to what your expectations are, and be ready to answer tough questions, because they're going to push back. we do that all the time. We're going to push back and see whether you really mean what you're asking for. So be ready to answer those questions and use facts or data like the work you've done. I've done XYZ, and this is why I think you should consider me for this raise or this promotion. And because you're defending yourself with facts, it most often helps. That's what I think worked in the past, and I hope that's helpful.
Thank you so much to all our panelists for these insightful discussions. And we had one comment in the chat, which I think sums it all. It is, you are all making this seem less scary. Thank you. And this is really, really important in these uncertain times. And this is sort of the objective of the PlantGrads initiative, to build community, right? To be there for each other, but also practically sharing job ads, sharing resources, connecting you to mentors. And so if you would like to be part of this initiative, again, make sure to join our Slack channel, send us an email at plantgrads@gmail.com. And yeah, we hope to really even broaden this community even beyond really the plant sciences. These are scary times for everyone. So yeah, we're all in this together. Thank you again to the panelists. Thank you to our participants. And yeah, watch out to our next events. We will be organizing these types of webinars for prospective graduate students, but also to graduate students that are out on the job market, focusing on, you know, negotiation, how to navigate the immigration process, how to connect with mentors, hiring managers, and things like that. So yeah, thank you all and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.